that was subsequent to his experience. I think he was in New York now. I can't tell you precisely, but 2 or 3 years, I think, as an O&M instructor. And O&M instructors were sort of homegrown before there was formal training. And as you know, it began in the mid-60s. Western Michigan, you know all this. Well, I suppose that we should say there were 3 of us who had an institutional interest in getting the program started at UALR, because it was an institution of choice in Little Rock and available to us.
So there was a university already established?
Oh yeah, it's that university, we must go back to sometime in the 30s when it was a junior college, a part of the public school system, but operated as a junior college. Then later it became a senior college. It was called Little Rock Junior College. Then it was Little Rock, I don't know, but then it became Little Rock University, and then political groundwork was done to bring it together with the whole university system and make the University of Arkansas Little Rock. Now, my interest of Roy Cumpy, and the interest of the man who was then the director of the Division of Services for the Blind, the man who's doing the job that Jim Hudson, you met him?
Yeah, I'm
blind,
sure I have.
A blind man.
If he's at DSB,
Yeah.
yes, I've met him.
Services for the blind.
He gave it to me.
Yeah, well, that man was named Lou Reeves.
Okay, I studied a little about Lou Reeves.
Well, he was running that agency. I was directing this one. Roy Cumpy out at LWSB. And all of us had extreme troubles finding trained people. Late 60s, we didn't find programs anywhere to speak of. Boston College had mobility training. Western Michigan program had begun, but there just wasn't anybody available. There were 2 or 3 educational agencies offering training for and education for teachers, but I couldn't hire any of them because my salary structure.
Too small.
I couldn't compete with Eastern
Big schools or big agencies. And so you actually had training for children here, orientation mobility training, or?
The staff did what we did.
What you did?
Yeah.
It wasn't organized?
No formal. They had no formal. But we took kids out on the campus and on the streets, long before there was O&M.
I was wondering how that might have been done.
Just the English teacher was scheduled a period to go work with these 2 kids, this all the time, all semester, and so on. Everybody had kids that they worked with.
And the kids used the canes?
Sure, we in our crude way, that's all we could do, because you didn't, O&M didn't begin until 1965.
Exactly.
Out of Boston, Western Michigan. And so there were none. And if you did anything, and we were doing this back in the late 40s. You know what a dog killer is?
No.
You hadn't heard of a dog killer?
No.
A dog killer is the standard length walking cane,
Okay.
painted white with a crook on it.
The crook on it. Okay. And it's thick enough you can probably kill a dog.
Kill a dog.
After you.
Blind people who used the thing called them dog killers.
Dog
So
killers. This is my dog
we
killer.
adopted, if a dog attacks you.
You use it.
Yeah. Well, we were using those old canes up until Roy got a man in Batesville to begin trying to make a long cane. And he turned them out. Batesville is a town up in north central Arkansas.
So they were made out of
Hickory.
Wooden cane.
Yeah. With a metal tip and a wrapped straight handle.
And then you just painted them white.
Yeah, he painted them. And we bought They bought their canes, we bought our canes from this man until national sources came along. I'm encapsulating a lot of things, of course. And you did as best you could with what you had.
And it seemed to work all right.
Right. We weren't turning out sophisticated travelers, but our kids were able to move safely.
And their needs probably weren't as large as they are now.
Well, the travel problems were simple compared to what they are today. Our aim, which we constantly pushed, was to teach this kid to travel from wherever he is to work and back to home safely and efficiently and rapidly. That was our
It's the same
statement.
as what it is today.
Well, yeah, but that's what we told our teachers.
And they did the best they could.
Yeah, and we did what we could. And learning as we went along and
Probably like
refining.
the normal teacher does,
Yeah, and refining and improving as things develop. So that's the way we were. And Western Michigan was having success. In fact, Jim Cordell is the first Western Michigan graduate. He was working here for us.
At ASB.
Yeah. Roy though paid. Well, I'm sure he paid for his tuition and everything, and then Roy hired him when he came back. But Jim was with us. He had been a PE teacher, I guess. Most early O&M people were PE teachers. You've read that. You've seen
No,
that.
I didn't know that, but it would make sense to
Yeah.
me because I was first that as well.
Most early O&Ms were
I can understand that.
physical education teachers. Have you heard of Bob Bryant down at a school in Texas?
A residential school?
No, college, a university.
Awesome.
It's not at Austin. It's a smaller, anyway. He worked for Roy. Went to Western Michigan, got his training and then was hired. He's been there. He's been at that college for 25 years at least, but they don't do anything but O&M. No other blindness programs. I can't even think of school.
Oh, there's so many of them.
It's in eastern Texas, but I can't think of it.
It probably comes to you in a few minutes.
Well, that's immaterial. But we couldn't hire people. So we began to talk about the possibility. We beleaguered the president of the university. UALR was not an independent university at that time. It was under the jurisdiction of the Fayetteville campus. And the president called the shots on everything. So we began beleaguering him. We got appointments with him. He had an office over where the law school is now. And I reckon the college, the university president still has an office over in that building. Now, he doesn't run any one of the universities. He's only the university president. The university chancellors run the, that's Dr. Hathaway's title, he's chancellor.
So you started talking to
The top man.
president.
The top man.
You go to the top.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
things.
Don't ever start low.
No.
We didn't get much encouragement. The Roy Company was a great politician. He once ran for the state senate, and he was visually handicapped. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
He was visually handicapped, had severe cataracts as a youngster, and they were butchered terribly in his early cataract surgery in the early 30s. Well, there were no ophthalmologists. General practitioners did.
It's so hard to imagine now.
Yeah. But he had terrible luck. Now, come up to 1950, the early 50s, a local well-qualified ophthalmologist straightened out a lot of his problems, and he had 20/40 vision after being almost, well, he learned to read Braille in the residential school.
So,
He'd been there, see.
so he knew what he was talking about.
That's right, he'd been there. Far more than I did.
But you just kind of knew what you wanted.
Right, what we had to have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my first interest was not O&M. We were doing a passable job. I was looking for trained teachers. I was looking for teachers who had special training to teach blind kids.
So like vision specialists.
Who had certification, including such things as one O&M course, methods, Braille, techniques. Well, we prescribed 25 hours for certification by the State Department of Education, which they took and set up a special certifying program. But what I wanted was to get all our teachers.
So that they would all have common basic knowledge to work from.
Yes, ma'am. And we had about 40 teachers at that time. So when we finally got something going, I kept UALR busy for 5 or 6 years. Well,
Just
really.
supplying them with your teachers.
Yes, getting our teachers through the program. But now, that's not to neglect O&M. I had that interest too. But I had the larger interest of every one of our teachers.
It's probably better to start from a broad base.
Well, we needed O&M badly, but it was simply a byproduct of all the other things I was looking for. Now, Roy was looking only for O&M people.
Because his teachers were already trained.
That's right. Well, he didn't have any training rehab teachers. There was no programming anywhere in the country for rehabilitation teachers.
Still growing, isn't it?
Yes. That hasn't come along. Training for rehabilitation teachers is no more than 15 years old in the United States. Yep. In fact, it's still evolving.
So
He said that too.
No, yeah,
She said that.
She said that as well. She said we're still trying to get.
Yeah, handle on what do we need? What do our people need most desperately?
So it's still basically the same.
Yeah. Well, we kept plugging away at it. Along comes Larry Dickerson.
Along comes Larry Dickerson, or did you know who he was before?
No,
Oh, really?
he was employed at the university as a counselor. And then he was assigned to the rehabilitation center at Hot Spring, one of these interlocking programs. But he had a basis of knowledge of blind people because he had O&M training.
Oh, I see. He was like your expert.
Right. So when we finally convinced the president, I guess we got out and raised some money, and I can't remember how much, but private money.
From the community.
Yeah.
Is that through the Lions Club?
Yeah, I guess we got some Lions Club money. It seems to me like we got some United Way money, a little bit. We didn't have much money, maybe a few thousand. Right. Now, in the beginning, classes were, Larry taught everything that was taught to begin. Well, no, we had an O&M instructor named Jim Liska.
Jim Liska.
Have you got that name in your memory somewhere?
So he was the director of the program, or?
O&M, just O&M. Larry held on to the overall picture until he got promoted to an associate dean. I think that's his title now. No, maybe he's vice president. I guess he is a vice president. But he got promoted to an associate dean sometime in the early 80s. Now he's maintained his interest.
Yes, and he still teaches some courses at the university. English program.
He'll be at the advisory committee meeting. You know about that.
Yes, I'm invited. I think all the students go.
Yeah.
So it's good for my classmates and I to know about these things, so we know who these people are in
Well,
relation to our program.
yeah. But you'll be ahead of the game, having talked to all the people you've talked to. A man named Jerry Nichols, but not Gary Nichols. Oklahoma Commissioner, who's totally blind. He's chairman of LWSB's advisory. Both of them meet at the same time. The University Advisory Committee meets at lunch on Friday, I believe. It's already been said. I've forgotten when it is.
I think December 2nd.
Is it that close upon us? I'm chairman of UALR's advisory committee. Well, I'm just the only one available who knows most everybody. That's all. The only reason I'm chairman.
So has there always been so much cooperation between the three agencies, the LWSB and ASB and Arkansas Schools for the Blind? That's
And
really amazing.
even the minor ones. The Arkansas Lighthouse for the Blind. Arkansas Radio Reading Service for the Blind.
Which is here in the vocational unit.
I started there.
Really? How did you start that? I don't know very much about it, I just know that it's quite a vital
Well, it's
service.
funded largely by something called a federal program that gives us a little money. And we don't have a little, just enough to pay the director. I squeezed out some space. We got some grant money to buy equipment and hired Randy Johnson. He's been here ever since 1980. I guess we started that program in 1979. I believe that's when we
So
started. It has no connection with the school.
it's just housed here.
Yeah, so,
So that radio service goes throughout Arkansas?
well, it doesn't quite. We're utilizing public television broadcast system to carry our signal to the 5 other corners of the state where there are the other stations. There's 5, I believe. Northwest Arkansas, the center, northwest, the 4 corners and 5. And our signal is going to all of those on their so-called sideband. The 2 south ones we're not covering yet because they are not equipped to handle the signal that we send to the central station that they then send everywhere else.
So do you also receive radio reading service from other places and then direct it out? It's just homemade?
No. We use National Public Radio. You've probably seen the dish, the receiving dish on top of the vocational building.
That's why I wondered what.
It's to pick up NPR programming. We use NPR programming mostly in the wee hours when practically nobody, we're on 24 hours, but practically nobody's listening from 11 to 7 the next morning. We use NPR program, which is a 24-hour program, and pick it up with that satellite.
So people who receive radio reading service need a special receiver?
Yeah.
How do they they just fill out a form?
If you're needy, you get it if you're on welfare, you get it for nothing. If you're not, you have to pay for it, which costs about, we're just buying some new ones, and I think they're going to cost us close to $100 a piece. And then we've got a little bit of money, such that if you fall between, we give you one. We're just now buying some new, better receivers, but they don't get anything else, as you know.
Just that one channel. It's great.
Well, we are unique in that, and then I meant to mention one other agency. The Library for the Blind is involved. It is a state federal program.
So they can receive money from both the state and...
Well, yeah. And it's housed with the state library, which essentially at the state level is kind of like Library of Congress. It was established to provide resources for legislators, but it's expanded widely. And this program, the Talking Book program, is a part of that program.
I met someone at the conference who was from the library.
Okay, that would have been Jim, the smallish fella.
Yes, from Canada.
Uh-huh.
No, okay, must have been a representative, but.
I don't know who it might have been. No, he could have, he came here from Georgia.
Uh-huh. It's the same fellow.
Okay, he is a Canadian. I don't think I'd ever picked up on that.
Only because I was talking to him,
Well,
we were talking about
yeah.
Canada, and he
Yeah.
said, I'm from Canada too.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the way it is.
So,
He's been here 5, 6 years. I'm doing a good job. Doesn't have much money to work with. He's a part of the bureaucracy that he's such a small segment.
but they all still work together.
Yeah.
Providing services.
Yeah.
Really unique.
Well, we are really unique. There's not many states
Well, that's what I heard.
in the country where all these guys talk to each other.
Yeah, without having a system.
Yeah, yeah, and fighting each other for money all the time. Because everybody is somewhat dependent on the same tax base money. Now, LWSB not directly, but LWSB indirectly because tuition is a thing that supports LWSB by and large. Now, they do public fundraising, but it's only about 12% of the income is done through fundraising. The rest of it comes from tuition, which comes from tax sources all over the United States. So everybody's fighting for the same dollar.
And you
But-
could probably use the dollars better if you use it together.
That's right.
Share the services.
Much cooperation.
Mhm.
Uh,
So
Well, aren't you housed here?
Yes, I am.
And all you do is
I ride the bus.
fiddle around with a little something
Yeah,
that's not hardly to be classified as work.
exactly.
And that's the cooperation between UALR and the school. How many such of you are there?
Of the people who ride the buses, there's
No, I
5
mean,
or 6.
how many UALR?
UALR people, in my program there's 7 people, and 4 of us
Live here?
live here.
I started there in 19...
Really? Well, thank you.
Well, you don't owe me anything. I did it as self-preservation. We were in a particularly lean period in the middle 60s, tax rate. So it came upon me one night that there were probably some students at UALR who would gladly work for their room and board. So I began recruiting. In fact, one of the young men, who was a young man at UALR at the time, is one of my investment counselors with Payne Weber, the national. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So he used to live
Yeah.
here. And he in the vision program?
No, there was no vision program.
He was, oh, that's right, he was in the 60s. Wow, so he just advertised for students? who
I went out there and talked to people, the deans, found people who were struggling to meet their room board.
It's very helpful.
So I used 2 rooms in the boys' dormitory. Now, it wasn't very nice housing, it's 2 to a room.
But still, it's better than that.
It cost them nothing. They got room, board, laundry for, I believe I asked 10 hours a week.
Still, they say 20, but basically it's 10.
Maybe I did ask for 20 hours. Yeah, I guess so. Half of work. Yeah, that's what I asked for. Instead of 40, I asked for 20 hours a week, but we'd scheduled it to fit their schedule.
So what kinds of things did they do?
Mostly dormitory relief kinds of work and recreational kinds of work, helping the recreation director. We had one. How many they got now? I don't know.
I don't know, 1 or 2.
Well, we had one at that time, assisting that program. But the big help was to provide relief hospitality on 1 day a week, maybe 2 days a week.
Because at that time, the children stayed here all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So now they go home on weekends and then the house parents can have it.
Yes. Well, We had a big mob of children going home every Friday afternoon, but we sent them home on public buses.
Mhm.
Our own responsibility. Get them to the bus station, put them on the buses and send them home, and meet them again Sunday afternoon and evening and bring them back home.
The parents paid for that.
Parents paid for it. And we had a lot, we always had. During those years, we had close to 200 kids here. And,
Interesting, the numbers have dropped quite.
oh, yeah.
Due to mainstream.
They're out in public schools, yeah.
So the system must be working.
You know, it is in Arkansas, yeah. It's not working ideally. Bob's doing the best he can do with what he's got to do with it, but those kids are getting an inferior education as far as their blindness skills are concerned. They're very inferior. I don't know how many filthy people you've got, but they can't see a kid more than once a week. And what can you do? You can't give them adequate.
No, once a week, very difficult. Big agencies are saying at least twice a week.
And you ought to have more if you're going to do a good job. And look at all the other things that they're having to do out in the public school of Arkansas. I believe we've got, I don't know how many schools have a certified blindness instructor. I don't think they're going to have a dozen of them in Arkansas. I think that's right. Who are stationed in that town, in that school, or those schools.
And then they offer their services to a variety of students.
Yeah, whoever is in. Now that, of course, those kids are getting a pretty good education, especially like that.
Exactly.
The strong basis that they need.
From a lot of children that I've spoken to here, they said, well, a lot of them have been in the public
Right.
school system, and they've said many times that, the support they get here is just uncomparable.
And the wide variety of
Experience.
educational experience they get here.
It's pretty comparable to being in the public school.
Sure, oh sure. It's been this way since the
It's really remarkable.
early 40s. We had a social adjustment curriculum in the late 40s that we spent months building. And I let my copy get away and it disappeared. I wish I had it to show.
Probably in the archives.
Well, I doubt it. I don't know where it is, but we spent months developing a curriculum for building the social skills that blind kids don't have when they get here.
You could have only done that experience.
Right. We had no educational background to do it. We did it out of the experiences that we gathered while we were teaching. Well, we made application for federal grants. We began to get some. We got the formal program going. Dr. Dickerson stayed in the program, as I said, until he was promoted. And then I guess
Jim Scott was in there for a year or two.
2 or 3 years.
And then.
Just mobility. He wasn't program director. That's why Dr. Dickerson was still. But then I guess.
I'm not sure if he was promoted to director and Bill Dickerson was hired,
No, Bill replaced Jim Liska, I guess. And I guess Dr. Dickerson was still directing the program when Bill was hired, as I recall. I'm not absolutely positive of that. Bill took leave of absence somewhere in there. He didn't have his degree. He went back to the University of Arkansas and got his EDD. Sometime in 82, 83, 84, somewhere along there. He was out a year getting a degree. We've had only one other educational person, and of course you don't stay very close to that situation.
No.
Dan Head, you might ought to put down, Dan Head was the predecessor for Kay Holbrook. He's out in Arizona. He went from here to Arizona State. he was supposed to have been at the literacy conference. I think I had heard early, but then he didn't show. Dean Tuttle is supposed to be here too, and he didn't show for some reason. He's recently gone to work for Hadley as their education director. You know what Hadley is?
No, I don't.
Correspondence school, right?
Oh,
In Winnetka, Illinois.
really? Because, yeah, when I was telephoning to apply here, I talked to them doing telephone a few times. So,
Did you reach him in Winnetka or in Colorado?
no, in Arkansas, I think. No, didn't have one.
No, I don't know of another Tuttle. Dean Tuttle, Atlanta University of Northern Colorado program
Different type, yeah.
for long years. I don't know another Tuttle.
There's someone at UALR I can tell.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay, we're confusing
Yeah.
the issue. Well, he's one of the quotable people. Dean Tuttle is one of the quotable people as far as blindness education is concerned.
Really? Okay.
And he's working for Hadley as their educational director since he retired from the University of Northern Colorado.
Okay.
I'm loading too much detail on you.
No, it's okay, because now all these names that I've been hearing, I can suddenly put together. Ah, okay, I have heard of him. That's right. It's starting to come together, so it's good. Yeah.
Hadley's real, it's been around a long time,
Yeah.
the late 1800s, I think, when it was established. Yeah, it's been around a long time.
Correspondence is basically through the mail.
Yeah, exactly. And they're scattered all over the world. I mean, they teach students from all over the world. At one time, they had a director in South America. They had one in Northern Africa, somewhere across Israel or Lebanon or
Middle East.
yeah, somewhere in that Middle East area. And a man named, he's the director. I have no reason to think of these names.
Exactly, until I ask you about them.
From day to day, you know, I have no reason. What is that fellow's name? I don't know. That's immaterial. Correspondence schools aren't
Yeah.
any interest to you at this moment.
No, they are. I was going to, Derek mentioned that you used to be associated with AFP.
I was on the AFB's board for 29 years.
29 years, how did you get?
Did I get there?
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious to know how that was.
Well, I was president of our professional organization, which was American Association of Instructors of the Blind.
Is that similar to AER, but?
AER is a progression from. We
Okay.
had two associations. We had the American Association of Instructors of the Blind. We had the American Association of Workers for the Blind.
Okay.
Never the twain shall meet, really.
So to speak, yeah.
And nothing in common. Everything, two totally separate organizations. AAIB was education. AWB was placement, job acquisition, and this sort of thing.
Okay.
We went along, both of them were established around the turn of the century by interested people, starting these two. I was president of AAIB in 1962, 63, I guess. It's a convoluted thing. It's kind of hard.
So you were right in the middle of all that.
Oh, I lived in the very greatest era of education of blind kids.
Yes, because I read the history part of my textbook, and that is such
I knew all these great people.
Yeah.
Uh,
When I heard about Lou Reeves being in Arkansas, I just
Yep.
fell in my chair.
He and I were very close friends. Dr. Lowenfeld is a close personal friend. He's still alive. He's the prolific writer. You must have seen something he wrote.
Many articles.
He worked for the American Foundation in most of the he came to the United States. He's an Austrian. And he came to the United States in the mid-30s. He worked for New York Institute for the Education of the Blind, which is the South residential school. Then he worked for AFB for most of the 40s. I went out and became superintendent of California school. So here I was, a colleague in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and so I got to know him really well. But back to how did I get involved? AFB has a provision in their charter that the president of AAIB and the president of AAWB shall serve on the board during their tenure of two respective organizations. It's still there, except that now AER has that one representative. Now, president of AER serves 2 years on the board.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well, I was serving. This way they kept somebody on board who had some knowledge of language. The board of AFB doesn't have any knowledge. They are non-professional, moneyed people that AFB has recruited because they have access to money.
And they know how to get money.
That's right.
That makes sense.
You're perceptive.
Yeah. I have friends in business.
Well, during my term as president, I served on the board. It was time for me to go off. The then president of the board called me before I went off, the 1st of July, '64, and asked would I continue to serve. I did. I was vice president then from about '68 until I retired from the board.
Amazing.
So I was in the middle of it.
That great debate.
Yeah, everything was going on. I met Helen Keller several times. She actually was here to dedicate this building.
Yes.
I recall that day very vividly. It came up one of those sudden September thunderstorms, and the whole process was going on out on that front porch. The dignitaries were up there. We had park benches spread out across the front. We had a big pedestal fan, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
To blow the American flag, keep it blowing.
Because it was one of those
Yeah.
windy days.
Yeah. This terrible rainstorm came up. I was the principal. I was out in the audience. It fell my lot to carry that big. I couldn't get in the front door because of the press. But I carried that big fan around the side door of the old auditorium, which now is the classrooms. Duke's office is back there. The conference room is back there. And I remember how hot it was in that auditorium. And I took that big fan up and trained it on Helen. And she went on with her speech. She was intelligible. You had to listen kind of hard. But a great lady.
We went to AFB in New York a few weeks ago, and we went into the room that was dedicated to her.
Well, that's
We were all
commonplace
so
to me.
impressed. We were so impressed.
I've been in that room 500 times. I guess.
Yeah, I will go back. I'll look through all the things I didn't have a chance to see.
Did you see her bust in the director's office?
Yeah, at her desk.
I've got a picture.
There's several of Helen Keller's items in the conference room too, isn't there?
We had a man who was a PE teacher, who was an amateur photographer as well. He made he worked for us from about 1945 till he died in the mid-70s. And he was always making pictures for me. I've got a box full. And he spent several weeks at AFB in the summer of I don't know what, helping write a curriculum for PE for blind kids. And while he was there, he took a lot of shots of that bust of Helen Keller, and I've got some pictures of that bust that he took.
That he took.
Unless I may have. I gave that to Joetta Duke. Framed. Yeah, I don't have that picture. But anyway, I've had the great fortune.
To be involved.
In the middle of all these great people, and have known them and gained from their wisdom. I brought lots of things back here to us
Mhm.
from my association with all these people. Don't give me credit for what's going on here.
Mhm.
I translated it, perhaps.
You probably just set the ball rolling.
Yeah.
It's been going in the same manner. It's
Well, that's about it as far as the program at UALR.
Mhm.
We lived on grants, and then
I was You lived on grants and.
for an awful long time until we